Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to write 303 Acid House basslines. Now, to go along with this video, I've actually just dropped an Acid House MIDI pack on my Bandcamp for $5. You get a bunch of different MIDI loops that you can drop in with your favorite 303 sound to make your own Acid House kind of tracks. So, yeah, I recommend checking that out. Like I said, it's in the description, first link. You can't miss it. And yeah, let's dive in. So, I have this little 303 sound here that I made with analog, and I'm just going to be talking to you about a few of the kind of things that I think are helpful when you're trying to write these 303 bass lines. So the first thing I want to talk about is pattern length. So if you don't know, the 303 was like this old kind of box that Roland made, and the thing about that is that it didn't really have a super long pattern time. Like, you couldn't write like a 16-bar pattern that changes a lot of the notes and stuff. It was kind of like you make a short pattern and then you make it interesting with like automation and moving the knobs and all that kind of stuff. So when we make a 303 kind of sound in the computer, we have to mimic this, because otherwise, like if you did try to make like a 8 or 16 bar pattern, it would just get kind of weird. Like it wouldn't really sound right. It would definitely sound like it was being done in the computer. So I usually write like a 2-bar pattern. You could do 4 bars as well if you wanted to, but 2 is a pretty nice way to start. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll write a 2-bar pattern and then, duplicate it and change it a little bit and make that into a 4-bar pattern. So yeah. So then another thing we can talk about when it comes to actually writing the bass lines are octaves and fifths, because they're going to be really useful when you're writing these bass lines. So if you don't know, obviously an octave is just 12 semitones up from whatever note you're playing, and then the fifth is always going to be 7 notes up. So what the point of these is, and I'm going to draw some stuff in while I'm talking about this, the point of these are that it's such a stark contrast from your root note usually to go from there up to there, that it kind of like gives it a bit of groove, especially if you play with it like the right way rhythmically. Like we could do something like this. There's the octave, and then we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, our fifth, and we could write something like this. That would be pretty groovy. Stuff like that. But you can see when I jump up there like that, it really like, again, it just kind of signifies to your ear, like, okay, this is a thing, and it sets these notes apart. Really, is what I'm trying to say. Like these particular notes, if I mute these really quick, you'll hear if we play them with the metronome. That's kind of where a lot of the groove is coming from. So to accentuate like those particular 16th notes with higher octave and fifth notes is really helpful. I think that it's like, a good way to write these. So the next thing I will talk about is automation, because automation is very, very important with this. So obviously, like I was saying before, typically when you're writing an acid bass line, you write a very short or simple pattern and then do a lot of automation to keep it, moving and to keep it interesting. So the main things you're going to want to automate are the frequency and the resonance. And a lot of people just automate the frequency, but I'm going to explain to you why the resonance is important. So if I start playing this and just start moving these knobs, so you can hear when I start moving that resonance up, you have to do it sort of, in unison with the frequency, like keep them in the same kind of ratio of, which one is turned up higher and all that. But when you do it, it just really helps to bring out like the sort of juiciness of the sound. But when you have the frequency down very low, the resonance can sound kind of bad. So you have to sort of automate them at the same time to really get the proper sound. And there are a few different ways you can do this. You could just literally write in some automation here. Like, let's say I'll do something simple. Like we want the resonance to go up here, and then we want the frequency to go up there as well. You can do something like that, and it'll be pretty simple. Now that went a little bit too high, but you kind of see where I'm getting at here. You could also, if I click on this and hit Control G or Command G if you're on a Mac, you could just map these each to a macro and then just control it that way. There are kind of like a lot of ways it could be done here. Let me map these to a macro. There we go. Yeah, you know, you can do stuff like that. But just anything to get those kind of moving. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about in regards to this are extra notes. So obviously, the only notes in the scale aren't the root note, the octave of the root note, and then the fifth. There are also a lot of different other notes that you could have. For example, I could throw in like a minor third here, and it'll give it like a different kind of feel. Or we could even take like this note. You know, there's a lot of kind of stuff, but what I do recommend doing is I recommend kind of like staying around minor scales. The thing is, the major scales can work for this style. Like, but that kind of tends to have a very certain, or like a very particular sound that I'm not really sure is the best always. Like, it just sounds kind of weird to me, whereas when you do it in a minor key, it feels like it fits a little bit more. But again, it's totally up to you and what you want to do. But that is what I recommend doing. So you can throw in those notes. You know, you can even just throw in ones, like stuff like that. Just anything extra to give it a little bit of flavor. But again, it's all about sort of like focusing on that root note and then using the other notes to bounce off of that, and to keep the groove going. So that's going to be it for this video. Like I said, I just wanted to explain a few tips about writing acid bass lines. Once again, you can get the MIDI pack in the description for just $5, so I recommend checking that out. And yeah, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and check out my social media in the description. Thanks again, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another tutorial.